Hello Captains, and welcome back to another Captain's Academy episode with your instructor Chase, and today I'm going to talk to you about Space Armor in World of Warships. And this armor is incredibly troll. If you've run into ships that have it, sometimes you might just go like, what on earth are my shells doing? And that's because Space Armor has a few interesting properties. So the first property it has is that HE pens against Space Armor do no damage. So your HE shell blows up, you get the pen icon, but no damage comes up from it. The second thing about Space Armor is the fact that it is incredibly troll when dealing with armor-piercing shells. You could have a cruiser with Space Armor, and then you shoot at it with a battleship and go, wait, what happened to my shells? Like, what's going on here? And I'll kind of be able to explain that. The third really troll thing, which is kind of based on the second point, and I'll cover this in a bit more detail later on, is the fact that AP pens do no damage. Now, this is a strange one because I've talked to a developer about this and, about Space Armor mechanics, and from all indications in my conversation with him, AP pens are supposed to do damage, so this is a bit weird, and I think it might be a bug. And finally, of course, at the very end, I will talk about my concluding thoughts about Space Armor and what makes it such an interesting thing on ships. Alright, so let's cover the first point. So the very first point is kind of self-explanatory. When you shoot HE into Space Armor, you basically do no damage. So here I am shooting Prince Eugen HE, which has quite a lot of penetration because of that German HE penetration buff. And I'm shooting it into the side of a very lightly armored French Tier 4 cruiser that has Space Armor. And as you can tell, no damage when I'm shooting at it straight into the broadside where that Space Armor is. Nothing. I am able to damage modules, I'm able to set fires, I get those penetration markers, but no damage done with the HE. So this is the very self-explanatory bit for Space Armor. It's when we move on and deal with armor-piercing shells does the Space Armor advantage become significant, right? So taking two Tier 10 cruisers and comparing it, the Henri IV and the Moskva. Henri has that multi-layered and spaced armor, right? So it's got that 19mm bulge, a 140mm main belt, and a 45mm citadel. So against Yamato armor piercing, at a 37-degree angle, 1.7 kilometers, right? The armor piercing at that range has 744.96 millimeters of pen, so tons of penetration. The auto bounce chance is around 53%. So what happens to the Yamato shells when it hits the Henri at that kind of angle? Well, first of all, it overmatches the 19mm bulge armor, and once it overmatches, it doesn't have to worry about auto bounce anymore. And then it has enough penetration to go through that piece, and then it hits the 140mm main belt. Now this, it cannot overmatch, so an auto bounce check has to be done. If successful, the shell will bounce, otherwise you do a penetration check to see if the shell has enough penetration to go through that armor, which again at 1.7 kilometers, Yamato shell has plenty of pen and it'll keep going in. Once it goes in and it hits the 45mm citadel piece, again it cannot overmatch. So another auto bounce check is done, and again if successful the shell will bounce, otherwise you do another penetration check, and if you still have enough penetration you go in and you get your citadel hit. So Henri basically gets two auto bounce checks when dealing with essentially the most powerful shell in the game. And this is an advantage because unlike, let's say, the Moskva, where you only have one check, the Henri can fail a check, and then you can still bounce that shell. The Moskva is very simple, right? Single main belt, it gets hit, right? The shell cannot overmatch, so auto bounce check is done. If successful, the shell bounces. If not, it'll penetrate, and boom, you take citadel hit from Yamato shells on the Moskva. To show you this in action, take a look at this, right? The testing parameters, see the Moskva, boom, there's two citadels. Sure, I'm going to bounce shells here and there, and you're going to see it, like there's going to be shells that I bounce, but when that auto bounce doesn't work, the Moskva will take citadels. With the Henri that you'll see after the Moskva, one of the things that you'll notice is that there are very, very few citadel hits. In fact, I probably would have taken longer to kill the Henri if I actually didn't have salvos that kind of went a little awry and went higher up and then did a bunch of penetration damage. So here it is, against Henri. This is a salvo that goes a little wild, goes a little high, does 10k in terms of penetration damage, but the ones that actually hit along the waterline, I don't get much there. I really don't. You know, and the penetration damage I think I am getting is the ones that go high. Otherwise, just take a look at this. I mean, there you go. Finally had one that passed through both layers and got me a Citadel. But other than that, it's not easy to actually get good damage against Henri. The armor is just that troll. It actually takes me 10 salvos, including that one that went awry, including the ones that went high. All that factored in there, it took me 10 salvos to kill a ship that has less HP than the Moskva, where the Moskva only took me 7 salvos to accomplish the same feat. The effect of the spaced armor on armor-piercing shells is even more dramatic when you move away from battleship AP and you look at like cruiser AP. So I took a Zhao into the exact same sort of training room scenario, set it up, started shooting at the Moskva versus the Henri IV. With the Moskva, I was able to get reasonable numbers of Citadel hits, and I was able to kill the Moskva off relatively quickly. But then I switched over to the Henri, and the Henri was an exercise in frustration. I just sitting there, spamming the key. 96 shots later, the Henri was still at a good amount of HP, and I just said, screw it. So I ended up torping that Henri to death. And the reason why that happens is because the Henri against Zhao AP has 3 layers where auto bounce checks has to happen. And honestly, good luck with that, because I just don't see it happening. Now, on to the third point, and the third one is the one that I think potentially might be a bug. So, here I am with the Zhao, up against the French Tier 6 cruiser, La Galissonière, and there's, spaced armor there, a main belt and an inner piece. And here, I was able to get a Citadel. So that's normal, right? That's me passing by both armor plates, both the auto bounce checks. Okay. Then there are also the occasional ones where, the shell went a little bit high and it didn't hit the belt armor, and there you see the normal penetration. But then here's the strange one, and this is the one that I have trouble explaining, right? So I'm going to fire a salvo, and the shells are going to go low. They're going to hit the main belt armor, and what you're going to see is 2 bounce ribbons, and you're going to see 1 penetration ribbon. However, that penetration does no damage. And I wonder if this is much the same effect as the HE pens doing no damage. And I wonder if it's like there's a null damage zone when it comes to spaced armor. Kind of maybe the same way that like torpedo bulge is considered spaced armor. Don't know. We'll probably need a developer to confirm or deny this. Maybe have them leave a comment in the video comment section and let us know. So, conclusion so far is basically this. If you angle with ships that have spaced armor, they become incredibly well protected, as you have more auto bounce checks. So ships like the Duca d'Aosta, for example, even though its outer belt armor is a bit thinner, if you angle it well, it can be a lot more durable than other single, thicker armor belt cruisers. So, might even be better than, say, the Cleveland, for example. Anyways, hopefully we can get developers to clear up whether or not the spaced armor not taking damage is intentional, maybe it's just an accidental bug. Anyways, folks, hope you enjoyed this Captain's Academy episode on spaced armor, or maybe we should just call it a black hole generator. Anyways, folks, take care, have a good one, and I'll talk to all of you again next time.